Hello everyone, and welcome to Behind the Bulletin. Thank you so much for joining us today. Tonight, we bring you a story that has shaken the entire C-drama world, a revelation wrapped in sweetness, shock, and a decade-long connection that fans never stopped hoping for. Decade of friendship turns to love. Lei and Zhao Lusi confirm their relationship. What truly happened behind this long-awaited confession? How did 10 years of chemistry finally blossom into romance? And why is the entire industry buzzing with excitement? Stay with us, because the full story begins right now. The night the news broke was supposed to be ordinary. It was past 11 p.m., and the city outside was winding down in a blur of soft neon, fading headlights, and the distant hum of late-night traffic. Yet inside a quiet rehearsal studio tucked away in Hengdian, everything was trembling with a kind of tension that could no longer be contained. Lei stood alone near the window, the dim ceiling lights casting shadows across his jawline. His expression was unreadable, too calm. Controlled, the kind of calm a person only wears when something inside is dangerously close to overflowing. Behind him, Zhao Lusi sat on the edge of a wooden bench, fingers tightly intertwined in her lap. She watched him quietly, her breathing shallow. She had rehearsed this moment in her head 100 times. But none of those imagined scenes felt anything like this. Not with him standing only a few feet away, not with 10 years of emotions pressed between them. 10 years. Years of laughter, pranks, teasing, bickering, 10 years of pretending her heart didn't jump whenever he looked at her too long. 10 years of thinking she was the only one holding back. Tonight. Lucy, he finally said, voice low. Steady, but too steady. Like he was fighting to keep something from shaking loose. She looked up at him, her heart pounding loudly in her ears. He didn't turn around. Can you just wait a moment? I'm trying to breathe. Her eyes softened. I can wait. The silence that followed was heavy, not uncomfortable, but charged, full of meaning. Lei placed a hand against the cold glass, his shoulders rising with a deep inhale. For a second, she thought he wouldn't speak. For a second, she was afraid the truth would stay trapped inside him forever. But then he turned. Slowly. Carefully. As if afraid that one wrong movement would shatter whatever fragile boundary kept his feelings contained. His eyes, those warm, expressive eyes she knew better than her own reflection, locked onto hers. And in that single moment, felt 10 years crush into her chest. I can't pretend anymore, he said. Her breath hitched. Pretend what? That I'm okay. His voice trembled, not with weakness, but with honesty. That I'm okay being just your friend. Fingers froze in place. He took a step toward her. Then another. And every step felt like the earth pulling him closer to truth he had been avoiding long enough. When you laugh, he said softly. Like something inside me loosens. When you cry, I can't breathe. When you disappear for a while, I check my phone too often. When you're near me, I feel, he paused, swallowing hard. I feel everything. Too much? She stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. Lei she knew, teasing, carefree, always pretending nothing ever bothered him, was gone. Standing before her was a man exhausted from holding in too much for too long. Why are you telling me this now? She whispered. His smile was small, sad, beautiful. Because I realized something today. Something stupid. Something obvious. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. I realized that if someone else confessed to you before I did, I would go crazy. Her heart dropped. Lei. His head. No. Let me finish. Please. She nodded. His voice softened. I've been in love with you for a long time, Lucy. Longer than I should have let myself be. Longer than I even admitted to myself. The studio felt too small. Too warm, too quiet. She felt her vision blur slightly. But she didn't blink. She couldn't. I kept telling myself we were just friends, he said. That losing you as a friend would hurt more than never taking the risk. He let out a shaky laugh. But today I realized something even scarier. What? She breathed. That losing you completely would destroy me. A soft gasp escaped her lips, the kind that came from the deepest part of the heart. The part that had been waiting too long. He crouched slightly so his eyes were level with hers. Lucy, he whispered. I don't want to pretend anymore. Not for one more day. Not for one more minute. And then, almost afraid of his own courage, He reached out and touched her hand. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even a full gesture. Just the smallest touch of fingertips, but it felt like an explosion. She inhaled sharply. Her pulse raced beneath her skin. Her breath shivered. And the air between them grew thick with everything they had held back for years. "Tell me to stop," he whispered gently, "and I will." She didn't. Instead, she curled her fingers around his, slowly, trembling, daring, and held on. His eyes widened. For the first time all night, he looked completely unguarded. Vulnerable. Alive. "Wu Lei," her voice cracked. "I've been scared too." Heart slammed against his ribs. "As scared of what?" he whispered. "Scared that if I admitted how I felt." Her eyes closed, a tear slipping down her cheek. You would pull away." He cupped her cheek instantly, carefully, wiping the tear before it even reached her jaw. "Never," he said, voice breaking. "Never." Their foreheads touched. Their breaths mingled. Years of unspoken emotions pressed against them from all sides, threatening to spill over. For the first time in a decade, neither of them stepped back. She whispered, "I like you too." Hailed, a sound between relief and disbelief, and his hand slid to the back of her neck, shaking lightly. "Please say it again," he breathed. "Like you," she said, firmer. "I've liked you for a long time." He closed his eyes, shoulders trembling. After 10 years of waiting, the wall finally cracked. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Their breaths were uneven. Their hands still intertwined. Foreheads touching like the softest collision of two worlds that had been orbiting each other for too long. Wu Lei's voice broke the silence first, barely a whisper, trembling with everything he had held in for a decade. "You like me too." The disbelief in his tone made her laugh through the tears gathering in her lashes. "Yes," she whispered. "I do. I always have." He let out a shaky exhale, eyes closing for a split second as if steadying himself. When he opened them again, they were shining with something fierce, something relieved, something desperate, something unmistakably in love. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, brushing his thumb gently across her cheek. She looked away, cheeks warming. "How could I? You were always surrounded by people. You seemed so untouchable." "I was terrified," he admitted. "Terrified to ruin what we had." "Me too." His hand tightened around hers. "We almost ruined it anyway. Didn't we? By pretending." A small, sad smile curved her lips. "Pretending is safer." He shook his head slowly. "Not when it hurts this much." Silence fell again, the kind that was heavy with truths unspoken for too long. Then, as if drawn by instinct, he lifted her chin gently so she would look at him. "Lucy," he murmured. "I need you to know something. If you hadn't said anything tonight, I don't think I could have held it in any longer." Her heart pounded. "What do you mean?" "I was going to confess anyway." His voice softened. "I couldn't keep pretending to be your best friend when I wanted to be more." Her breath caught in her throat. Leaned in closer, but stopped just before their lips touched, a breath's distance. Close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, but far enough that the tension twisted deliciously tight. "Tell me this is real," he whispered. "It is. Tell me I'm not dreaming." "You're not." He let out a soft, helpless laugh, the kind a man makes only when he realizes he's falling and no longer cares where he lands. Their lips would have met then. They should have. The universe seemed to pause them on purpose, to hold that moment just a heartbeat longer. The door creaked. Rose. A staff member peeked into the studio, unaware of the emotional hurricane he'd walked into. "Wu Lei, oh." He blinked rapidly. Sorry. I didn't know you were still here." Wu Lei straightened slightly but did not release her hand. "Not this time. Not anymore." "Fine," he said calmly, too calmly, considering the way his heart was pounding. "What is it?" "Your manager is looking for you." Staffer stammered. His eyes flicked to their hands, still firmly clasped, and widened. "Should I tell him you're busy?" Wu Lei held her gaze. Question hung in the space between them. If he let go now? If he stepped back? If he pretended again? He knew everything would collapse. Slowly, deliberately, he tightened his grip on her hand. "Tell him," Wu Lei said, "that I'll be out in a minute." The staffer nodded quickly and left, closing the door with a soft thud. When they were alone again, Zhao Lusi's chest rose and fell in silent astonishment. "You didn't let go," she whispered. "I'm never letting go again," he replied. Breath trembled. This time, there was no interruption. He cupped her face gently, brushing her hair behind her ear, letting his fingers linger for a moment that stretched like an elastic thread between their hearts. "Lucy," he whispered. "I don't want this to stay hidden anymore." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I want people to know." His thumb traced her jawline tenderly. "To stand next to you without pretending I'm not in love with you." Her eyes widened. Her lips parted. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." "But the backlash." "Don't care. The rumors. We've survived 10 years of them. The fans. The ones who love us will stay. The rest," he smiled softly, "we'll face them together." She pressed her hand against his chest. His heartbeat pounded beneath her palm, strong, steady, devoted. "You really want to tell the world?" she asked softly. Straight into her eyes, steady, unwavering, sincere. "Yes. I want to call you mine, out loud." Breath shivered. Then when? He took her hand and placed it over his heart. "Now. Tonight." Her lips parted in surprise. "Tonight." "Tonight," he repeated. "Before either of us loses our courage." She laughed, a soft, disbelieving, emotional sound. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious in my life." She looked at him, really looked, and saw not the boy she met at 20. Not the co-star she laughed with on set. The friend who teased her endlessly. But the man who had loved her quietly for years. Fully. Patiently. Completely. Whispered, "Then let's do it." His eyes softened in a way she had never seen before, a quiet surrender to happiness he'd been denying himself for too long. He leaned in, their lips finally meeting in a breathless, trembling kiss, slow at first, then deeper. More certain, more desperate. It was a confession, a promise. Culmination of 10 years of tension breaking open beneath their skin. When they finally pulled apart, their foreheads remained pressed together, breaths mingling. "We should go," she whispered. "Yet. Before we change our minds." "We won't." They intertwined their fingers again, this time with full intention, and walked out of the rehearsal studio side by side. And for the first time in a decade, neither of them looked back. They stepped into the hallway. Quiet. Into the unknown. And into love, real, undeniable, unstoppable. The car ride to the company building felt unreal, too quiet, too bright, too fragile for what they were about to do. The windows. The city shimmered under streetlights, unaware that two people inside a black sedan were preparing to change the course of their lives. Wu Lei sat beside Zhao Lusi, their hands intertwined on the seat between them. Neither spoke. Words felt too small, too clumsy for what surged inside their chests. The silence, however, wasn't empty, it pulsed with certainty, with fear, with a joy so intense it bordered on painful. When the car finally stopped, he turned toward her. "Last time," he whispered. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering, she squeezed his hand, gently at first, then firmer, and nodded. Her eyes were warm, steady, luminous with a courage she didn't even know she had until tonight. "I'm sure," she said. "I'm sure." That was all he needed. They stepped out of the car together, fingers still intertwined. The night air was cool, brushing past their skin like a quiet blessing. As they walked toward the entrance, the building's glass doors reflected their silhouettes, two figures standing shoulder to shoulder after 10 years of standing almost close, but never touching. Inside, the hallway was empty. Steps echoed softly on the polished floor, each one a beat of determination. When they reached the small press room, staff members inside froze, eyes widening in shock as they walked in hand. Whispers erupted immediately, buzzing like electricity. But neither of them let go. Wu Lei took a deep breath, lifted his chin. He pulled Lucy a half step closer. "We're here to make a statement," he said. Lucy felt his thumb brush the back of her hand, a silent reassurance, and she stepped forward with him. And in that small room, the bright overhead lights, surrounded by stunned staff, they spoke the truth the world had been waiting for without even knowing it. "We're together," Wu Lei said. "We're happy," Lucy added softly. The room filled with a sound of typing. Gasps, disbelief, excitement, but nothing could penetrate the small, private world they were standing in. They looked at each other, And everything slowed. 10 years of unspoken love finally had a voice. 10 years of closeness finally had a name. 10 years of waiting finally had a place to rest. When they walked out of the building minutes later, hands still intertwined, the world outside felt completely different, brighter, softer, like the city itself was exhaling with them. First time, they weren't friends pretending. Co-stars avoiding the truth. They weren't two people walking parallel paths. They were together. Finally, undeniably, beautifully together. And the night, quiet, warm, full of promise, held their secret no longer. Carried it toward the world. Toward tomorrow. A beginning that felt like the ending they'd always hoped for. Thank you so much for watching and supporting Behind the Bulletin. Your presence gives life to every story we tell. If you enjoyed this emotional, cinematic journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue bringing you the most dramatic, heartfelt, and immersive storytelling inspired by the world of Asian entertainment. Stay tuned for more breathtaking stories. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate you, always.